Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Dan Does Disney. Special guest Merlin here.
Hello.
And this time we are talking about Fantasia, number 3 in the classic lineup. This happens to be the 4-disc special edition with Fantasia 2000. We're not going to talk about that yet. We'll talk about that eventually, I guess.
Eventually,
but,
yeah. Which I've never seen, actually.
I have not either.
I've heard it's
That's
good.
going to be a first for both of us, I suppose.
Yeah.
So what we do on this Dan Does Disney show is
Got the
go
format.
over... Yeah, we got the format down finally. But we do sort of the background on the movie, and then talk about the movie itself and review that, and then I sort of talk about what's on the DVD and the features and all of that. So we're going to tackle that right now with Fantasia, the 1940 Fantasia. Same year, by the way, as Pinocchio.
What a big year for Disney.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, you had Snow White a couple of years ago.
Then a couple.
And then in 1940, you had both Pinocchio and Fantasia. We did Pinocchio last time, and now it's time for Fantasia. Okay, so all the background. I have so many things to tell you about this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of
It's like not even funny. So, okay, so the reason it exists at all is because they were trying to do The Sorcerer's Apprentice as its own short.
I could see that.
With Mickey Mouse. Because the popularity had waned a little bit, and Walt was like, how do we bring him back?
Really?
You know, yeah. By the mid-30s, yeah, he had waned a bit.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
That
he
is-
was 6, 7 years old by then. By then, you know, Looney Tunes were out.
That's,
You know, some of the other hot properties of the day were out.
but that's just interesting because I'm just thinking there was a time when Mickey Mouse was like in danger of
Yeah,
not
he was
being.
like not hot
He's
at
not.
the time.
He's not the icon yet.
So they were going to put a Silly Symphonies together with him,
Huh.
with the whole Sorcerer's Apprentice theme, but production costs grew a lot higher than they expected. They figured, well, it's never going to earn this much as a short, so let's turn it into a feature length with these other segments we can set to classical music. So, so what happened? The soundtrack was recorded using these multiple audio channels, produced with this whole thing I'm going to tell you about called Fantasound.
What?
Yeah. So it was let's see. So Walt got deals with the Philadelphia Orchestra, which I love that the Philadelphia Orchestra was the one
Philly.
that did this.
Fancy PA, yeah.
Yep. And this composer and music critic Deems Taylor is the guy who provides the
I like that guy.
intro to each segment. Yeah, he's pretty cool.
He's so
actually.
sophisticated.
Yeah,
He's
he's not bad.
He's so
actually.
charming.
So you know, this all was about 1936 is when that took place. So we're working towards it. Over 1,000 artists and technicians used on this film.
Wow.
More than 500 animated characters total throughout the segments.
That makes sense.
And Walt's original vision for this was to re-release it every few years with a new segment in place of something. So every time people would see something new.
Okay.
And then by the time it was released 6 or 7 times, it would have all new everything.
Okay.
So we'll get to the specific parts in a little bit. But so we like to talk about the different releases. Disney does the whole, every few years you put it back in theaters. So this was another bomb upon original release.
You know, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that it's kind of weird in retrospect that we hear that now, and it's always interesting to find out what was a bomb.
Yeah.
But I understand why this one might have been, because this movie is really experimental.
Very.
Like this is the kind of thing
It's
that
the Radiohead of Disney films.
yeah, I'm like, this is the thing. Like,
Yeah,
even like
for sure.
We'll get into it with the transitions, but
Right.
obviously this experiment with you know, combining the visuals with music and just the introductions, like, I mean, like talking about
Very experimental.
abstract concepts about
Right.
like what you perceive with music, and I'm like, and then like I'm thinking, okay, this is like some psychedelic trippy, like this is something you expect to see like in the 60s or 70s at the earliest.
Well, it's funny you say that because I have a comment about that.
Like that,
when they
like,
re-released it in the 60s.
when they do that, and then even the stuff we'll get to about the evolution thing, I was very surprised to see that in the
Yes.
40s. I'm like,
Yep.
this is the way. I was like, that is, I think that's very cool, but like, talk about bold things.
Very bold.
Like, just
well, and that's what Walt did. I mean, you
Like-
know, nobody thought Snow White was going to work. And Walt wanted to do it, so he did it.
But I mean, and this is like taking the experimentation of and the boldness of Snow White to like the upteenth degree.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm glad it exists, of course. But
Yeah.
this talk about, I can understand why they dialed back on the formula later on, because
Right.
this is really out
Very
there
out
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
So what happened was, it was so out there that RKO, who was Disney's distributor at the time, said, we don't want to distribute this. This is too weird. They called it like long hair something or other, like whatever. So what they did was, what Walt did, I should say, in November of 1940, he started these roadshow engagements, which, back in the day, this is how a lot of movies would roll out on a smaller scale or more, big budget pictures. We'll put it in, that now they'll be like, starts in New York and LA, and then a month later rolls out.
Different cities.
Yeah, if it's like an Oscar picture or something. So back in the day, they
go on tour.
They would go on tour, basically.
Huh.
So what happened, though, was
Kinda cool.
Walt was so into this idea of making the music come to life, he sort of helped create, along with, the engineers at Disney, this thing called Fantasound, which comes from Fantasia, of course. And it was basically kind of a precursor to surround sound.
Nice.
So they had to reconfigure any theater that was going to do the roadshow. It took a week of working nonstop to reconfigure the speakers and all of that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So that was a big part of the roadshow plan. And what happened was they did 13 roadshows throughout, 2 a day, higher prices, program booklets, ushers hired and trained by Disney to seat you.
This sounds kind of like an awesome event, to be honest.
It really does. I wish I was there. It ran on Broadway for 59 weeks.
And
over a year,
What?
this thing ran on Broadway.
And you say it was a bomb. So
Bomb.
clearly people that saw it liked it.
LA, it ran for 39 weeks. First 11 road shows that they did earned $1.3 million by April of 1941. So now we're about 6 months after.
Wow.
Right? But here's the problem. It cost $85,000 in production and installation for each Fantasound setup. So you're eating your profits right there. But then the main thing that killed it was, what did we talk about with Pinocchio?
Oh.
World War II was about to start.
Oh.
So they weren't allowed to get the movie over to Europe.
Ah.
So that took a lot. So in April of 1941, after 6 months of the roadshow, RKO took over and said, okay, we'll continue on the roadshow stuff, but Fantasound stuff was all gone. They dismantled it, gave it to the war effort. Okay. So at that point, Fantasia was at an even greater loss than Pinocchio.
Jeez.
So Fantasia took about $2.2 million to make.
Wow.
Okay. So RKO released it in general theaters in 42, but with significant cuts, because we're at now 2 hours and 5 minutes for the movie. They cut it down to 1 hour 40. Then they cut it down to 1 hour 20. And put it on the second half of a double bill with some Lucille Ball movie. So it was re-released in 46 with a bunch of the stuff restored, but still clocked in a little short, 1 hour and 55 minutes. So they cut down like a lot of the commentary between. They cut down some of the parts in the middle of each one. And it didn't have an intermission anymore.
Okay.
So that became the standard for all the re-releases up until about the 90s. In 56, the sound negatives were deteriorating, but they had a stereo copy of the 3 tracks, so they transferred it over telephone lines to the one Fantasound system that was still up at Disney Studios.
They want to keep this thing alive.
They really did. And so when it was re-released in 56, it had a stereo quality to it from that. But also, Walt, cutting edge as always, was trying to compete with CinemaScope and had this thing called Super Scope. Okay, CinemaScope was like the real, like basically the first widescreen, Ben-Hur and CinemaScope.
Nice.
So this was Super Scope, and what happened was he created, he didn't create, but whatever, his team created this projector that was able to vary between the original standard square to the widescreen in 20 seconds without a break in the film.
That's cool.
So that was like a revolutionary thing. So that was the 56 re-release. Released in 63 again with Super Scope. 69, we finally turn a profit on this movie because
The movement.
You got
The
it.
60s.
With the psychedelic campaign for the ads, they rolled it out to the hippie crowd.
Mm.
And then what really did it was
That
it
makes sense.
continued to play in college towns and art houses through the 70s.
That
in
really,
like midnight shows and stuff like that.
and you know what? That would be the
You
time.
called it.
That would be the time for Fantasia to really bloom.
Yep.
Whoa,
so
man.
that's when it made its profits. So
cool.
then it was released again then in 77, again in 82. The first time, by the way, that a film's soundtrack was digitally re-recorded in its entirety.
Huh.
And they took away the Deems Taylor scenes and replaced him with a voiceover narration, which is weird. In 85, re-recorded the narration again. And then in 1990, film got restored. Everything intact from the original. The 2-hour, 5-minute cut that we see today.
Probably what I grew up with.
And that's where it grossed $25 million just in that one re-release. Wow. So finally, it's really turning a profit now.
Because I'm like, when I think, so you think of Fantasia, that's the hit. That's huge. And it's
right.
Interesting.
Well, and now, with inflation, when it's adjusted for inflation, Fantasia is in the top 25 of all time.
Really?
Yeah. Nowadays.
So it got to its place. So it is.
So now it's been quite beloved and everything. Huh. So the soundtrack did not come out when it was released. They talked about it. For some reason, it was shelved. In 57, it was released on a 3-record set. Which I thought was weird. I mean, it's classical music. You would think that would fly off the record shelves.
Easy, yeah.
But it didn't for some reason. Then they did a stereo version in 61, and then they had... a few redos of that. 3 video releases only. So the first was in 1990. 9 million advance orders.
9 million for 1990.
For 1990.
Wow.
And then on Laserdisc, it doubled the previous record of pre-orders. At the time, it became the biggest seller of all time on VHS.
Oh.
14.2 million.
Jeez.
Surpassed next year by Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
Okay.
And then in 2000, it was released again with Fantasia 2000 in like a pack. And then the one I have is the last release they did for it, which is back in 2010. So it's been in the Disney Vault for 9 years now.
I must have had the 1990 release then.
You probably had the original VHS 1990 release.
The big with all the...
With the clamshell, yeah.
I like those.
So we've got sequel and spin-off ideas. As early as 1980, but they never transformed into anything. They decided to do Mickey's Christmas Carol instead.
Oh.
But there is a possible Night on Bald Mountain feature length happening at some point.
Well, people love that one.
People love it. They've been talking about that for a few years. And then, of course, it's in lots of video games dating back to the Atari era again. It's in Kingdom Hearts. It's in Epic Mickey.
Oh, by the way.
It's in Disney Infinity.
Speaking of which, yes. Have been going through Kingdom Hearts. And, okay, you know what? I'll save it. I'll save it for later.
Oh, we're gonna save it.
I mean, I know that some people might know, but I know you don't. So
yeah, I really don't.
It's kind of cool going back. These is interesting.
So that's about all of the overall stuff I have for the movie. I have a few of the segments I have news about, but that's the background of the movie. All the re-releases, all that cool stuff, and we'll talk about the extras on the Blu-ray and stuff a little bit later. But now we defer to you. For because I've talked everybody's ear off. So I guess do you want to go over the bits one by one?
We probably
I feel like
should.
We should on this,
because they are their own things.
So do you want to talk first about just in general
I love it
because you already talked about the experimental nature of it.
The
first thing we see is this Deems Taylor. So I guess let's talk about having Deems Taylor introduce everything, every segment. Tell us about it.
I don't know why. Like I remember as a kid, I kind of always thought it's very fitting because Fantasia. I mean, it's weird. There is an element of weirdness to it that was very similar to a lot of the early releases watching as a kid. Like the whole thing was very dreamlike and strange, and and the fact that it's literally people setting up in this orchestra that partially in shadow. And I'm just like, this is strange.
It's so, but experimental is the best word for it.
But I don't think it's bad. I'm like, but like watching, like, this really feels like I'm setting up. I'm here. I'm in the audience, but I could also be among them.
And that's what he wanted. That's why he did the whole Fantascope or Fantasound thing, because he really wanted people to immerse themselves and feel like they were watching an orchestra. In front of them.
And I really did feel that way.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is really cool. Like, I feel like I'm getting ready for this journey, and Deems Taylor, his narration,
What a guy.
he is so classy, so sophisticated, so intelligent. I'm like, I believe everything this guy's saying.
Right.
He knows his stuff about the piece. I believe him.
Yeah.
Like he is the man. He's literally the master.
Well, and like I said, he was a music critic, so I mean, he knew his stuff.
He knew his stuff, and I don't know.
Obviously, I never heard of him. But
no,
at the time, but I guess he was a big deal.
I guess, but he just got a commanding presence. I'm like, this is the Fantasia guy. I'm like,
what's cool is, I mean, this is his legacy.
This is his thing.
He was a composer, he was a music critic,
but this is the crowning achievement. Was
known in this day and age for Fantasia.
He's the guy that holds it all together,
right?
And that's a really cool legacy. I'm like that.
It is.
I mean, talk about somebody nobody really talks about with Disney, but he's really
they really
cool.
Don't.
But Deems Taylor, I like the guy.
One of the top Disney people in your mind.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, Walt Disney.
It goes Walt Disney, Dick Van Dyke, and then Deems Taylor, number 3.
He's up there. I think I like him.
Nah, the dude's awesome.
I don't know why. I love it.
And you're right about his commanding presence.
Commanding, and it's just
you can tell why he was a conductor.
But he's so very matter of fact, and I don't know. I just really was like, and I get it more as an adult. Like I really appreciate the arts and what they're trying to go for. I think that's really cool. So yeah, I like that, and and that's where it starts off with the experiment. What's the first part called?
So the first part is called what is it? Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
And he's like, and it's like, yes, this is
this is part one. This is the real this isn't even trippy.
You want to talk about something existential? This is not really a song that has a title. It's just simply music stated for what it is, just for the sake of being.
Tells people
I'm just
what's up.
like for a '40s audience, would they have been like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yes.
Like I'm just.
Well, I don't know because you got to figure.
Like for classically.
I mean, that's when adults wore suits and ties to the movies. Like
maybe they were sophisticated.
I feel like maybe they were.
I don't know.
It's so hard to tell.
It is hard to tell
because there were so many movies in the '40s that weren't intellectual.
Exactly.
Some of the big movies of the day were more like gangster movies or westerns or whatever.
And I'm not saying they couldn't be high concept, but they were mostly just simple escapism.
Yeah,
they weren't trying to be like push
they were very mainstream.
Yeah, and, blockbuster kind of thing.
But they were the blockbusters.
He's all like, he's like, oh yeah, this is just kind of music and in its most abstract form. So we're going to try to capture that with images, and you got it'll be like lines and light and like the fact that it starts off with just simple things and I'm just thinking that dun dun dun, and I'm seeing like almost like little notes forming, and I'm just like dun dun dun. I'm just getting so into it. I'm like, and I'm appreciating more just because I appreciate music a lot more, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like really trying to combine the visuals with that. I don't know. That was cool, and also kind of outside of just the animation. Want to talk about the presentation with the orchestra? This particular part, where they actually kind of they're trying to connect the music and the visuals with what's actually happening with the musicians and the lighting around everybody. Like
it was very impressive.
Like around the conductor,
Walt was able to do all that.
With I'm just thinking how this is some of the best lighting effects and trickery and like I've ever seen. Like it's really cool.
Well, and one thing that's real interesting about this the DVD set that I have is, and obviously, we'll talk about the specifics of the Blu-ray later, but
sure.
You are able to watch the movie in either 1.33 to 1 ratio, the square, as it was originally presented.
Yeah.
Or, if you want, you can watch it widescreen. Most DVDs and Blu-rays these days give you one or the other. And a lot of players now won't even give you the option. It will just stretch the picture, which personally I don't like.
Yeah.
Because if it was originally in a square, you're missing things when they make it widescreen. I don't like that.
I like widescreen, but it has to be with the format it was shot in originally.
Right, that's what I like.
That's what they want.
And a lot of these, not to get off, on too many tangents, but this is, the channel after all.
Yeah,
but
that's what's gonna happen.
Something I like, and I forget which one it is. It's either like MeTV or Antenna TV. One of them, or maybe both of them, present shows in their original square box ratio. If they're running something from the 60s, it's in the square box. Personally, I like that. Because I'm seeing everything that was... one of the problems when The Simpsons first went into the FXX, where it was all widescreen, when it got syndicated there, some of these sight gags and like signs and stuff at the church were cut off because it wasn't the original ratio.
Yeah.
And so I watched it when I watched it today. I watched it in the original standard square ratio. And I thought it was cool.
Widescreen is cool.
But you can do either or with the Blu-ray, which I think is awesome.
It's cool to have the option. I think that they kind of push for that cinematic thing, but I'll be honest with you, I personally like not having the bars. I like the square. That's what I'm used to. I like to see the whole picture. So it's distracting.
And what they do on this, if you want to watch the square, they put up like some artwork on either side that goes with the theme of that particular movement.
Okay.
So you're not actually looking at two black bars.
Okay.
You are looking at a full wide screen, but the picture, the main movie, is in the square.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I like that a lot. And this section, this toccata, was supposed to be even trippier, apparently. And Walt tamped it down.
Like,
he said it's too much.
To be honest, I thought it was a bit much. Like, I'm seeing the hills moving.
Well, and he wanted to make the whole movie a 3D experimental film.
Whoa.
And this is in 1940 now. He was going to give audiences these stereoscopic frames, and there's a picture of them on Wikipedia. But it's basically like...
what an innovator.
I know. It's basically like, it looked kind of like what you go to the eye doctor when you put your face in the thing, and it's like these gray things with like specific frames, I guess, for 3D.
All right, people.
So,
this
obviously that didn't work out.
This is the message, okay, about Walt Disney. All right, dream big, go for it, because like
keep moving forward, as they say.
Keep moving forward, like
Meet the Robinsons.
Like obviously the thing people would catch up, but like talk about trying to do something so ambitious.
I know.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Believe in yourself. Because how appropriate for Disney. That's just amazing.
I know.
That is cool.
Isn't that so cool?
Wow. But anyway, this section I thought was cool.
Okay.
I really thought it was cool.
I like this section.
Yeah.
I don't think there's quite enough going on.
True. It's a good introduction, though.
But it's a decent introduction. I think you'll find a recurring theme with me with these.
Uh-oh.
But we'll get to it. So number 2 is Nutcracker Suite.
Okay.
I don't have any notes for that, but that's classic. Classic Nutcracker.
Do you want to keep going on these?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like I talk so much.
Well, yeah, you got the history. You got this. I'll try to take up the review.
Yeah.
Okay. This is another one. I actually did not like this one as much as a kid.
Okay.
For some reason.
I should note, when you mentioned the kid business, I've never seen this movie in full till today.
Oh, wow.
I told you the other day I thought that was true. It's definitely true. The only things I've seen were Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Nutcracker.
Oh.
That's it. I've never seen this. I never saw the Deems Taylor introductions. I never saw any of that.
So this is mostly
We
new
didn't
for you.
have this as a kid. Yeah, so this movie was mostly new for me today.
Okay. Well, this was one of the ones I think I didn't like quite as much.
Okay.
Mostly because I guess as a kid I'm like, oh, it's just flowers and mushrooms and I don't know, pixies, and I just thought it was like kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like going back and watching it, I really love, of course, the animation, and I love how this is so subtle. They're trying to capture the beauty of nature,
Right.
obviously, and I love how they can even make the flowers floating down the stream look like they're women dancing.
The animation in this...
But they're still flowers.
is like... Okay, so we've talked about now Snow White and Pinocchio.
Man.
The animation in Snow White is like...
Great.
First rate, like amazing, certainly for the time, but even now looks great. Pinocchio, maybe even a step above that.
Maybe.
A lot of stuff with the whale and the waves and stuff.
We just gush over the animation every time.
But this Fantasia animation is like...
Godsend.
I mean, it is the most next level crap. It's the fact that it was the same year as Pinocchio, even it makes Pinocchio look
a
little bit shoddy, because I mean it is. And then, granted, I know this is remastered and everything, but so is Pinocchio. We watched that on Blu-ray too. But
I watched it on a little screen on the computer, so
Okay, well there you go.
It still looks great,
but it still looked great. But I mean, the animation in this is in all the segments is like every time I was like, okay, like that was awesome, like. But this next one can't
live up to that.
It was like each one, and maybe they're not increasingly great. I don't know, but oh my god, I kept being stunned by the animation of this.
All right, the cutest thing about this one,
tell me,
was the mushrooms dancing
sections here. Yeah,
I loved how did you notice the fluidity? Those mushroom
Yes.
people, like they get anthropomorphic, so they cheat a little. But the mushroom people, as they're dancing, they shift. Like I didn't realize that as they were dancing, they're stretching and morphing, and there's 3 layers where they become different types of mushrooms, and then they morphed back to be all the same type of mushroom again. They're all dancing. But there's a little narrative where there's a cute little baby mushroom that's trying to dance, but he's like stumbling in there.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is the cutest thing ever. Like, and I'm
That's
just
pretty cute.
It's very cute, but
Yeah.
but the animation with that's so fluid. Also, a funny little thing about the music. He was all like, oh, like the Nutcracker. It's interesting how the artist will sometimes be too critical of their own work, and he thought it's the worst thing he ever produced.
Yeah, it stunk.
But this is the only thing that people really know him for now, and you may have heard of it. Like at this point,
what's funny?
He's all like, this is kind of obscure.
That struck out to me too.
Like Nutcracker obscure.
So maybe
this
Fantasia is what brought it
the Nutcracker
back into the consciousness.
I
I don't know.
He was like, you may have heard of one.
Everybody knows it now.
And he's like, you may have heard like 1 or 2 of these pieces.
Right.
And I'm like, so this is kind of like an obscure thing.
Right.
He's like, I know about the Nutcracker.
Yeah, that stuck out to me as well.
So
I thought that was weird.
And that is, and even though it's probably one of the best known pieces, it's actually the one critical thing I'll say about it.
Really?
Is that for as good as this is, it's very good. It has the disadvantage of being a bunch of little pieces.
Right.
So it feels like one of the less fluid ones.
Okay.
It's the only negative I have about it.
Guess what I think about it?
Best one ever?
No.
Oh shoot. What?
Too long.
Really?
Because of the different movements.
It's like
There's like 6 different pieces.
and they kind of clash a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's
here's
mean,
the
isn't
thing.
it? It's true.
It's to sort of put a point on the movie as a whole,
Okay.
and which we'll get to piece by piece. I
They clash.
sort of agree a little bit with RKO Pictures in that the movie is too long. At 2 hours and 5 minutes, it is too long. I think each of the pieces is a little bit too long.
Ooh.
Maybe not everyone, but I think that they could have at least cut one of the songs out from the Nutcracker and it wouldn't have lost anything, because it doesn't necessarily flow together as well as some of the other ones
flow together really
so
well.
So I will say that.
So I feel really bad being hard on Fantasia.
I know, me too.
But like that is a fair
listen,
comment.
we can't give every movie an A+ here. We can't. I mean, listen. Come on.
Yeah.
So next is Sorcerer's Apprentice, obviously the most famous of this
All right.
segment.
I know you have more to say. I like this role here. But obviously, Sorcerer's Apprentice. This is the selling point, that the original idea.
I mean, it's what, why it exists.
All right. Now, this might be where we debate. Maybe it'll get controversial.
Ooh, I
maybe
can't wait.
it'll come to blows here. First of all, it's classic. It's very good.
Yep.
A little bit of Kingdom Hearts reference. Do you know the
Tell me
name?
about Kingdom Hearts.
Do you know the name of the wizard that they gave the name?
I do, only because he's a character in Disney Blitz emoji, which I play.
Do you think it's clever?
Yen Sid. Yeah, I do think it's very clever.
And in Kingdom Hearts, I'm guessing, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the Kingdom Hearts Mickey, this particular version, is the Mickey in Kingdom Hearts,
Okay.
obviously, and
Yep.
he learns the magical powers of Disney, of Kingdom Hearts,
Okay.
from Yen Sid,
From
who's
Yen
like
Sid,
who's
okay.
like the ultimate master, because
That
he is
makes sense.
essentially the power of Disney
Right.
personified.
Okay.
And he also trained Merlin, who was also in Disney.
Ah,
So Merlin's not the most
interesting.
Disney Merlin's not the most powerful.
It's Yen Sid.
Is Yen Sid.
Okay.
So cute little thing
Yeah.
there. He's like trains you to use the Keyblade or whatever. But anyway, they tied this into that. It's really cool.
Okay.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I mean, if you know anything about Fantasia, you know Sorcerer's Apprentice.
you know this one. But I guess
pails and the brooms and all of it.
this one's definitely, you could tell, was the most designed for kids because it's got a moral.
Yep.
It's got a very obvious moral.
Yep.
They can't, no shortcuts in life, and you might take the shortcut and get.
And I think it's the most obvious plot of all of them.
the clearest story for sure.
The clearest storyline.
Good story.
Excellent story. I mean, this is the one I would say is not too long. this is the only one probably that I would say is a good length. And I like the movie, the live action Sorcerer's Apprentice. Jay Baruchel and Nicolas Cage. I liked it.
It's a tie.
That's the tie-in.
But yeah, I don't know if there's really much more I could say about it. I remembered this is another one of the ones that scared me a bit because the brooms, it just keeps building and it can't stop.
Right,
It really
right.
gets out of his control, and he tries to cheat, and it's just a classic story, classic moral. And I love I love when Mickey comes out and actually talks to the conductor, says, "Good job."
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. I always
Yeah,
liked
that's
that.
pretty
Actually, probably one of my favorite interpretations of Mickey. One of the best characters he plays. That was the question I wanted to ask you. Because, like in keeping with Fantasia, this gets a little meta. Clearly,
Oh, yeah.
because Mickey literally comes out. So, in the mind of Disney at the time, at least presented in this film, do you think that Mickey was simply just the character in this short coming out? Or was he actually like, we're supposed to think of Mickey as, just another person who works for Disney that takes on different roles, and that was just Mickey going out to meet him?
That's what I think. I think that he was basically an extension of Walt as the most popular character. So I think that he was coming out not even really as Mickey Mouse, but as like a representation
Of Walt.
of the company or of Walt
of Disney.
himself. Yeah,
I like that.
That's my interpretation of it.
I will say this. Maybe it's sacrilege. As good as it is, it's never been my favorite.
Okay,
Because I think maybe
Interesting.
it is, of them, it is the least experimental.
well, it is.
and
That's true. It's
the-
the most straightforward story
Animation's
because it was going to be a short.
fantastic, and I think
Makes sense.
maybe, and I can't say it's anything bad about it, but maybe steals the thunder for some other one. Well, except for maybe one other one, obviously.
Okay.
But it's maybe it's just a tad overrated in the
Okay.
can of Fantasia. Just putting it out there.
I don't
Don't
agree with
Don't-
that.
okay, well, I told you.
No, listen. As maybe we should go over it after we talk about all of them.
Oh, okay,
but,
okay.
all right. So next is Rite of Spring, and that is the one with the Earth's beginnings and the
Well,
what do you call it?
Dan,
Which,
this-
by the way, was dialed back.
dialed back.
Little dialed back, yes,
Um,
because they didn't want it to be too controversial.
really?
Yeah,
Well, this one is probably my favorite
that makes sense.
because as a kid, I just love dinosaurs.
Okay, sure.
Clearly,
Yeah, there were some creationists that were like not
happy about
happy about it,
But
so
but
it was dialed back a bit.
But I love. But if you want to talk about like, I guess probably maybe one of the first times it was ever shown on film, like the early origins of time transferring, and talk about beauty, capturing
Yeah.
it and trying to be as scientifically accurate as possible. I thought it was fantastic, and
I could see why this was your favorite.
and I love this is one of those great things in classical music where you see like the constant refrains and builds where you have it repeated over and over again with the same pattern but with different visuals building off, and you've got the clashing and pounding of the wind and the lightning and the lava, and then eventually the same basic beats and the chords are with the Stegosaurus and the
Right.
Tyrannosaurus fighting, and even down to like the death in the desert. Like I think it's a masterpiece of short film. But man, as a kid, just terrifying. Like
Okay.
like I'm telling you, even now, the pure raw nature of the Tyrannosaurus killing the Stegosaurus, dun dun dun. Just
Yeah.
think, and you're just like you're rooting for him, like no, please don't. And then he gives in, and then they all die
can see
out.
that.
Like it's just intense.
Yeah,
It's intense visual
very
storytelling,
intense.
and I'm really amazed just by how this might be, to my knowledge, this might be the first semi-realistic portrayal of dinosaurs.
Could be.
But before that, you had like some stop motion, which was kind of silly. I think
It could
they
be.
were really trying to be as scientifically
Yeah.
accurate as they were at the time, and I was just like that. That in and of itself, the whole presentation, really just impressed me.
Okay.
Talk about bold for the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think everything about this movie is fairly bold. So then you've got intermission and meet the soundtrack. Here's where I just lose it on this movie.
Okay.
I hate the meet the soundtrack part. It's so stupid.
Why didn't you like it?
Because it's stupid. Look. Here's the.
No, I kind of agree with you.
I mean, it's not a part of the orchestra. Like, it's not. It is, but like, it's not anything that's set to a visual.
Yeah.
It's just like, here, let's talk to the. It seems like such a stark contrast
To everything
with
else.
the rest of the film. Like, I get that Walt was like, okay,
kinda
well, we
wind
gotta have
down.
something for kids in here. Like, people are maybe coming back to their seats after the intermission.
They can miss this a little.
Like, yeah, okay, but it was a 15-minute intermission. Like, if you didn't get your popcorn and go to the bathroom, I don't know what to say. Like, so you come back and it's like this little cutesy kind of thing for the kids. It just, to me, didn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
You're
so
right.
that part I don't like.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
All right. So then we move on to the Pastoral Symphony. That is with the centaurs. Oh, I got some stuff to tell you about that.
Okay. This was one. You know, this is actually one of the ones that I liked. But I never. It was never one of my favorites.
Is it a little long?
It's a bit long. I remember getting a little bored. I will
Yeah.
say I really like the color contrasts. Obviously,
Yeah.
the mythology is pretty cool. It's cute.
Okay.
It's one of the ones I'd say it's cute.
Yeah.
But I
Little cherubs.
cherubs.
And,
You got Zeus blowing. And he's got the thunderbolts.
Yes.
Talk about just like, okay. You know the interesting thing about it is, you've got the dinosaur stuff, which is, and you know the whole evolutionary
It's very
stuff.
bombastic.
The natural
and-
world is so
yeah.
dangerous, so intense, and then you got like the mythological, you know, stuff that's just kind of literally fluffy and
Yeah.
cutesy and not really.
Well, I sort of
serious.
like the contrast in that regard, just because it's different
Enough.
interpretations of
Classical.
the pieces.
Yeah.
You know, not all the pieces are hard hitting.
No.
And not all of them are fluffy and cutesy.
So yeah, it's
So that I actually didn't mind.
no, it's fine.
It is a little long, but
It is a long
I
one.
didn't mind the contrast of that. They actually had to edit this a couple different times because
Really?
yeah, because first of all, originally the female centaurs were bare-breasted, so they had to take that out. The Hays Code said no to that. But it had a racist part that has not been seen since the original.
Oh.
Well, actually, since the '60s, I guess it still showed for a while. But
What was the racist part?
there was black female centaurs grooming the white female centaurs.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can't have that. It was last seen in 1963. They ran it on television, uncut, and then when they re-released it in '69, they edited that part out.
Okay.
So,
All right. Didn't know about that.
yeah, so we don't see that anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, also the bare breasts of the female centaurs, they had to edit those out before the first showing of the film,
All right.
which makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right, so then the next one is the Dance of the Hours.
This one I always thought
That's
was pretty cool.
the four morning, afternoon, evening, and night for the the elephants and
The hippo
all that stuff.
and the
hippo.
crocodile.
That was pretty fun.
I always thought that one was cute.
Yeah.
That also, I guess, has a bit more of a narrative too.
Well, and what it does, and what strikes me is weird is, remember last time we were talking about Pinocchio, and I said, oh, they had to push Bambi aside for a few years because they couldn't get the animals right.
Yeah.
But then you released Fantasia, which is like, all these animals look great.
Yeah, they look.
So I don't know. Maybe they just got so into Fantasia by that point that they were sort of,
It was an experimental.
yeah,
test
like
run.
let's just keep going with this, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love the animals in that. They did a great job.
Yeah, I
with
thought
the
they did a
designs.
fantastic job with it. Again,
A Fantasia job with
a
it.
little long. A Fantasia job
You know,
with it.
maybe that's the reason why those previous two I didn't like as much, is because of the length.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
And then we've got one that I think is timed perfectly because it's not that long, and that's the Night at Bald Mountain
Well,
classic.
You want to talk about
And then Ave Maria at the end,
Oh,
sort of counts in the same section.
section. You want to talk about a classic.
Classic.
I would argue if any of the pieces was to rival this one in terms of how famous it is,
Yeah, Night at Bald Mountain is very famous.
mostly, and also
For sure.
time for the Kingdom Hearts reference again.
Oh yeah, tell me.
You want to talk about, once again, scary. In terms of, well, for one thing, it's often kind of been a joke that over time you go over remember we talked about the list of Disney villains?
Yes.
Chernabog has,
one of your tops.
well, he is, interestingly enough, and for a lot of people he kind of is, because even though he's a bit understated, let's face it, he's the devil.
Yeah.
He's basically
Well, and this section scared a lot of kids.
He's a
when it came out.
Technically, he's like a Eastern European evil god, but he's like a counterpoint. He's straight evil.
Right.
He's got dancing demons. He's just like, he's got the grit. And tying it into Kingdom Hearts, I think towards the end of the first game we were playing through it, and you're going to, right before you get to the final boss, the final section, you've got to bypass this one thing, and you're going down into this portal, and then the music cuts up, and you fight Chernobog.
Wow.
And you want to, even in the game, like, he's as intimidating. This big, terrifying thing, and you're just like, oh, wow.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's just, he's developed a reputation as being kind of an iconic Disney evil.
Right.
And I think it's well-deserved.
Yeah.
And I think this one, as in terms of the music, I thought obviously was good.
Yeah.
And the matching with the movements of him as he forms out of the mountain. But I always loved the contrast of the demons dancing in his hands, and they'd become flame, and the different color flame, and then they shift to different types, and it's just like, ooh, like, I don't know, it's
definitely intense. It's definitely creepy. I can see why kids were scared of it.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So really good.
This was actually tamped down a little bit as well.
I'll bet. What did they change on this one?
Well, it was actually not as much scary stuff as it was religious. One of the Ave Maria scenes originally had like a Madonna appearing in the clouds, and Walt thought, well, that's a little too religious for, we want to appeal to everybody, classic Disney. And then he also had this really interesting idea of releasing incense. Incense.
You heard it here, people.
He released incense. He thought to do that during the Ave Maria part to sort of calm everybody down from Bald Mountain.
Some relaxing
They didn't do it, but wouldn't that have been interesting?
Probably been a good idea. I bet people seeing this theater might have been a little unnerved by it.
I know. I can't imagine seeing that in 1940. Very intense.
Sound,
yeah, with the surround sound. So I guess we should talk. I mean, that's the last segment, so we should talk about the movie on the whole here. I think you love it. I think I very much like it.
Oh yeah, I'd say
I knew you would like it more than me, though.
Really, you did?
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Well, it's experimental. Number one.
Yeah. It's different. It's a very interesting film. I definitely would say, even kind of much like when I was younger, I guess the only thing I could say about it as a negative is that because it is essentially a a compilation piece.
Yeah, it's a bit of an anthology.
It's an anthology. It's going to be a little uneven.
Right.
But even the stuff that's weak, I still think is fantastic. So, for the most part.
Okay.
It's very good. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on this one because...
Really?
I mean, I have more negatives for this than I did for either of the other two films.
Okay.
Snow White and Pinocchio, I had a couple of minor gripes.
About...
You had a lot of gripes about Snow White.
Well, I'm just talking about some of the plot holes, but that's whatever. It's just annoying.
I don't know. These early Disney movies, it's hard not to...
The time.
It's hard not to appreciate how insanely groundbreaking they were.
The production.
The production.
The history.
The
fight
literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into it.
There's so much.
The fights with producers, the fights with the distributors, the fights with theaters.
Kind of makes you... okay.
The fights with the industry.
Well, Dan, this is an interesting thing to talk about.
But I have negatives,
as an extension of literary theory. Film theory is essentially the same way. You can choose to try and look at it in the context, and you look at it as saying, all right, well, how do I feel that the piece works by itself?
Right.
But you and I always try to look at things also in the context of when it came out.
I really do. You're absolutely
historically,
right.
and I think that's fair.
Right. Because if this movie came out, well, I think we agreed. If Snow White came out today, it would be like a B.
Yeah, it's like fine, because we
it's good.
it's good, but like the plot is weak.
Let's be real. Plot's weak, resolves way too early, all the things.
Sure.
So, how important are my negatives on this? Maybe they're not. I don't know. Okay, I agree with RKO that it's too long. I think, especially in that time period, I think kids would be bored with this.
I was kind of bored for pieces when I was a kid.
Yeah. I think, now, for adults...
Yeah, for adults it might work better.
But that's not who these movies were marketed to, even then. They were marketed to kids. So, did kids appreciate classical music then more than they do now? I'm sure. Yeah, probably. So, okay. But I think it's still too long. I think a lot of the segments could be cut down. I mean, the reason that the Mickey Sorcerer's Apprentice is the most well-known is because it's the most kid-friendly.
That's true.
It's the most straightforward story. It's got Mickey in it. it's got a moral, like you said.
I can't argue with that.
So, and the music is great for it.
Sure.
Not that it's
any
worse or better than any of the other pieces, but the whole meet the soundtrack thing I think is stupid.
Did you like the part? I
have to say, in the middle of let's meet the soundtrack, I didn't care for that.
What was the one part? I forget which one it was transitioning for. Where, well, I wondered if it was staged or scripted. Where like he's trying to do the introduction, and then there's people like ring the bells over it.
Oh, I forget which one that was between.
And he was all like, I was wondering like if they kept that in, that'd be great.
Yeah, that might.
It felt so natural. I'm like,
well, Deems Taylor, he gets it.
It's like he'll be introducing the. Okay.
So I guess in terms of grades.
D. Okay.
No, I've got to put it up there.
It's still.
I fluctuate between an A and an A minus.
It's
not an A plus. It's not, but visually, it's to this point leaps and bounds the best animation that's ever been put on film.
As an audiophile, like the music and the recording.
Well, the music is great, obviously. I can't deny that either. I think for the historical aspect of it, I'm gonna give it an A, but I am interested, like the hour and 55-minute cut that was there between like the 70s and the 90s. I'd be interested to see that, to see if they cut out the right things, if it flows a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Maybe,
because at 2 hours and 5 minutes, I think it's just too long.
I think you might be right. It's a bit. Some pieces are a bit long.
So I'll give it an A.
Yeah.
But I really am teetering on an A minus. But for historical significance and certainly that amazing animation, I'll give it the A. What say you, Merlin?
Man, well,
it's a toughie.
It is a toughie. I don't know. I'm teetering on an A minus too, but I'll give it an A.
Give it an A.
I'll give it an A. It's pretty. Yeah. It's pretty darn good, especially for the time.
Yeah, for the time, it's just the visuals alone and the. Yeah, it's just so experimental.
How many times is Disney going to make a groundbreaking movie?
I don't know. So far, it's been 3 for 3. But coming up, see here we go. Now we're going to get to.
Is it Dumbo?
Next, well, Dumbo's the next one in the fully animated section, but the Reluctant Dragon is actually next.
Oh.
Which is it's more of like a background tour of the Disney Studios, but it's half animated, half live action. I don't know if you'll join me for that or not.
Probably not.
But the next fully animated one will be Dumbo.
Okay.
I always have you look down there because I have them in order. I think it's Dumbo and then Bambi. And then it gets to the music ones. It gets to like Make Mine Music and the Three Caballeros and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's after that.
And then we get to Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Oh, yes. You're one of your favorites.
Yes.
All right. Well, the camera's almost out of juice here.
Uh-oh.
So real quick, let me just go over the Blu-ray features on this. There's not a ton of them, but there's 3 separate commentaries.
Oh, nice.
I didn't get the chance to delve into that really, but one of them is from Disney historian Brian Sibley. One of them is from an original DVD commentary with interviews and note recreations from Walt himself. So that's probably pretty cool. And then there's a third commentary with Roy E. Disney, which is the nephew, I think, of Walt. Conductor James Levine, an animation historian and a film restoration manager as well. So that's very cool that they have 3 commentaries on there. And then other than that, there's just a couple of featurettes in there. One about like a Disney family museum that they have. But one is cool. It's got a Fantasia artifacts thing, including one that was found not in the too distant past, known as the Rosetta Stone of special effects animation. It's basically like Walt's handwritten notes, and all these storyboards and stuff that they thought was lost forever.
Wow.
Somebody found in like a vault somewhere.
Nice.
And so I did watch that. It's like 16 minutes. That was very, very interesting.
Interesting.
So I'll leave the DVD itself with an A as well.
Cool.
Not quite as many features as some of the other ones, but still really cool. And I would like to listen to the commentaries at some point, because I'm sure they're interesting.
Certainly.
But, all right, well, the camera's about to die. We thought an hour would give us enough time, but here we are. I knew Fantasia would be a talker with so many parts.
Yeah.
So we should wrap it up there. I, at least, will be back with Reluctant Dragon, but you'll certainly join me for Dumbo soon. And we may want to compare it to the live-action one, too. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Because that's coming soon to my theater, so.
All right.
But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you for the next Dan Does Disney. Bye.
Bye-bye.